Greetings and God's peace be with you. My name is Kristofer, and I'm one of the priests at St. Francis Episcopal Parish and Community Center. As you likely know, we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of September 11th. That is this Saturday, in fact. I know for many people, an occasion like this is one where we're invited to remember, to reflect, and to ponder the impact that tragedy had on our individual lives and on our common lives together. As painful as it was, as scary as it was, I have many memories of powerful ways that God was at work in my life and in the communities that I was connected to at that time. I wonder for you how you remember it. 20 years ago was a long time ago. Some of you listening may not have even been alive yet, but for many of us, it is a day that significantly shaped our lives and the course of our nation and really the trajectory of a lot that's unfolding in the world still today. For me, I was working for the college that I had attended down in Southern Maryland, and I was working for the Office of Community Service, helping to engage students in service and social justice work, a body of work that was really, really important to me. I was connecting in all sorts of ways with Episcopal priests that were doing beautiful, inspiring work in the community, but I'd never actually worshiped in an Episcopal church. And that Sunday when one of the students that I had worked closely with came in to tell me what had happened, we were just in shock, trying to make sense of it. And I remember hearing the bells ringing in the chapel on the campus of the little Episcopal church that was just around the corner from where my office was. And I remember just going toward the sound of those bells, finding myself in a pew praying. It wasn't a planned prayer service, obviously, but just an intentional way of opening that space for people to come and to be still, to be together and to pray. A lot moved in my heart and mind that day, and everything has changed because of that experience of entering into that sacred space at that difficult time. I ended up going with one of those Episcopal priests to visit a mosque in that Southern Maryland region that had been victim of an act of desecration as people had spray painted it and vandalized their campus. And the priest wanted to go just to be in solidarity with them and to let them know that that as a Christian and as a priest, he was not okay with that. And as people were afraid and lashing out, he wanted to bring strong public witness to his commitment to deep relationship. And he asked me if I would be willing to go with him, and it was a stirring experience to go to the mosque on that Friday and to pray with them, and a really beautiful relationship formed out of that tragic time. And I vividly remember the variety of services that we shared in together, and there may still be continued collaboration among those congregations still 20 years later. But for me, I most vividly remember when one of the assisting bishops at that time in the Diocese of Washington came down for a visitation, and it was a shared interfaith gathering, and I remember her speaking, remember her preaching, and beneath the words that she spoke of as she framed the challenges of that time that we were in within the Episcopal context that she was leading from. And she did so in a way that recognized and respected the tradition of many of the people that were gathered in that room with her, with our Muslim sisters and brothers that were afraid and that wanted, that wanted to feel safe in a time when few of us could feel safe. As I listened to her words, it was beneath those words that I first heard what I would later call a call to serve as a priest in the church. Well, I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't entered in to that sacred space to pray, if I hadn't connected and said yes, if I hadn't looked for the ways in which God was at work in the midst of terrible deeds done and so much destruction. I also remember later in that week being invited by the priest, and this was a different priest that was the rector of that parish, inviting me to a vigil in one of those nights and to pray the prayer of St. Francis. There was a variety of prayers that were shared, but he asked me, a young person that he was only beginning to know, if I would pray that prayer. And it was one of the first times that I ever prayed a prayer read in front of people, and there were a whole lot of people, probably well over 100 gathered at that service. But I remember getting up to speak those words. As I think of that prayer attributed to St. Francis, while it may not have been him that uttered those words, Lord, make us instruments of your peace. They're profound words. In this time, in this age, as we as St. Francis seek to be instruments of God's peace, as we seek in the words of the prophet Micah to do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. I'm so grateful for the ways that God is at work in my life, in our lives together, in your life, the ways in which God is at work in the world, bringing healing and reconciliation, bringing justice and peace, and the ways in which he uses us. He uses us to help bring about that kingdom. Thanks for listening, and as you reflect in this week on the tragedy of September 11th, I pray that you also remember the powerful ways that God was working in a healing way in the world. Thanks for listening. Christ's peace be with you.